Hello and welcome to coverage of round 12 here from Grand Prix Milwaukee. Maria Bartholdi and Reed Duke with you this round. There's your Pro Tour champion, Andrew Ellenbogen, on the right side of your screen. Running back the deck, he won the PT with Mono White Aggro, and Petr Sochurik on the left side, Golgari Midrange. Llanowar Elves, the first play of the game for Petr. Andrew playing a Dauntless Bodyguard on one and swinging on in. We often see this play, the Bodyguard with nothing to guard. Just a 2-1 for one, and following it up with an Adanto Vanguard.
Already an interesting game right from the turn to attack Dauntless Bodyguard into Llanowar Elves. That's a trade that I'd be inclined to make sometimes, depending on the context of my hand. The fact that Petr led with untapped Overgrown Tomb indicates to me that maybe he doesn't have a super comfortable amount of lands or mana sources in his hand. He decided not to make the trade, and we'll see what he spends that Llanowar Elf mana on here on turn 2.
How annoying is a card like the Vanguard for Golgari to deal with?
It's annoying, but thankfully Golgari, unlike something like Jeskai Control, can actually put a 4 toughness creature into play relatively early in the game. You can also attack back if your opponent gets too aggressive paying the 4 life. So I would say Adanto Vanguard is annoying when it's in the context of a good draw from the White Weenie player, but it's not the type of card that, okay, you know, it's lights out, it's going to win the game all on its own.
Merfolk Branchwalker finds the land for Petr. Then we have another Llanowar Elves on the table. Back over to Andrew, both of these players sitting at records of 9 and 2 here in round 12. And the Vanguard swinging on in, leaving the Bodyguard at home, interestingly enough, this turn.
That is interesting. It indicates to me that maybe Andrew is interested in getting the City's Blessing, or for some reason needs to have a lot of permanents out of the battlefield, perhaps for Convoke, Loxodon, Venerated Loxodon, something like that. But he does not want to trade off creatures here.
So Andrew gets in for 3 points of damage, knocking Petr down to 15. And we got a Foundry coming in tapped.
Wow, so an unusually slow start from Andrew and his White Weenie deck there. No play on turn 3. He would have loved to have something like History of Benalia.
Yeah, we often see these White Weenie decks just dumping their hand on turn 2, between turns 2 and 3, right where they want to be, swarming the opponent. Ravenous Chupacabra takes down the Bodyguard, and we get an attack for 3 here from Petr with the Branchwalker and the Elves. Andrew falls down to 17, swings in yet again with this Vanguard. So we'll see if Petr wants to jump in front with the Chupacabra and force Andrew to pay that life.
And this is something that I alluded to a moment ago. Petr chipping in for a decent attack there, threatening to do so again next turn. If he was to block with the Ravenous Chupacabra, sure, Andrew would pay his 4 life, but he can't do that too many times if he's taking you know, hits on the crackback.
No block here. And another Vanguard, the follow-up play. A couple of mana left open for Andrew. Passes a turn over to Petr, who's fallen to 10 following that attack.
So Andrew Ellenbogen with a little bit of an anemic or overly reactive hand, and Petr able to stabilize, develop his board early. Now we're getting into the stage of the game where Golgari is really heavily advantaged. He can start casting his Planeswalkers, his 2-for-1 creatures, perhaps find finality.
Yeah, is this kind of the point where you say, well, too late, Mono White Aggro?
I would say we're getting close to that. I'm not ready to call it just yet, since Andrew Ellenbogen can still have a good turn. Remember, his deck has plenty of Convoke cards, so he can do things like double spell. But his life total is starting to drop, which is going to take away from the effectiveness of these Adanto Vanguards. And if Petr can deploy yet another powerful card this turn, it's going to be hard for him to come back.
And sure enough, he does. There's a Wild Growth Walker, no Explorer to follow it up with, but Andrew just had to pay 4 life when he was blocking with that Adanto Vanguard, which is never what you want to be doing. There's Conclave Tribunal to take care of the Wild Growth Walker, so at least that is off the table. And we enable another swing in here. Andrew at 11, Petr at 10. Andrew's going to pay the 4 life once again to save the creature from the trade with the Chupacabra.
So actually a relatively even game if you just survey the board state, because Andrew can make another good attack with the 2 vanguards. Petter can block both, and Andrew can only save 1. So on the board, you know, it's pretty even, perhaps a slight advantage to Andrew, but you have to expect Petter to have a good play this turn. The top decks from this position are very powerful for Golgari, so slight advantage to Sochurik.
Both players on 7 life here. As you mentioned, a precarious number for Vanguard activations. We're going to play Find for Petter. Get back our 2 creatures from the graveyard.
Yeah, and you can see Ravenous Chupacabra just at face value can destroy 1 Vanguard and block the other, and Ellenbogen is not able to save both.
So here we go. Chupacabra lives to eat again. Targets one of these Adanto Vanguards. Now it's decision time for Ellenbogen. He's got to think about what could I possibly draw.
And this is a position where if it was just any old opponent in a Grand Prix, Sochurik would be very, very keenly aware of Heroic Reinforcements as a card that could threaten to kill him out of nowhere. But you have to figure the Pro Tour champion is very likely to be playing the same deck that he played at the Pro Tour, which I know from having covered the top 8 did not contain Heroic Reinforcements.
That's right. That was a big difference point between a lot of our aggressive decks in the top 8. Those that chose to be more Boros, including cards like Heroic Reinforcements, and those that just had red in the deck for the sideboard.
Yep, and you can see we have Ellenbogen labeled as mono white aggro. He has no red cards in his main deck, just the sideboard.
Let's see what he drew here for this turn. Paid the life down to 3. Yeah, Llanowar Elves, just an excellent blocker in this situation.
Yeah, every Llanowar Elves representing a 5-point life swing, or I'm sorry, a 7-point life swing, protecting Sochurik and forcing Ellenbogen to commit life to the Vanguard.
If you're Andrew, do these Vanguards come out in the sideboard game?
I don't think so. I think they're potent enough as attackers and resilient to things like Ritual of Soot that I think they earn their spot on both the play and the draw. But certainly it's going to be a card that is better when your draw is good, when you're on the front foot, maybe when you win the die roll.
So Andrew tanking a little bit here with this decision. Another Tribunal hits the table. We're going to take that Ravenous Chupacabra. Plays a land. Attacks in. Elf blocks one of the Vanguards. Petter takes 3. Trade happens. Down to 4. Dauntless Bodyguard guards the Vanguard. Very close game here. Life total's 4-3. Just a Llanowar Elf in play currently for Petter, but we do know he's at least got 1 creature because we got it back from the graveyard with Find. And there it is, Merfolk Branchwalker finds a land on the Explore. So 2 blockers down. Another land and a pass of the turn. Andrew living off the top of the deck there. See what he got. Ah! Sky Marcher Aspirant. He does have the City's Blessing, so that's a 2-1 flyer.
Sochurik passing with 4 mana available if you count the Llanowar Elves. I wonder if he has Vraska's Contempt to perhaps cast down some kind of instant to play here. If he does, he's in a pretty commanding position. If he does not, then the game remains close.
Let's see if Andrew wants to attack here.
Go ahead.
He does not. Passes the turn back. Over to the other side of the table. No kill spell for Petter at the end of turn.
Now he has a flying creature to contend with, and only enough life points to take one hit from it.
I think Petter has a fine finality in hand.
And Ellenbogen has done a good job of permanently exiling many of Sochurik's creatures, making the find part not too helpful, but looks like he might just pull the trigger on finality and hope that the top of his deck can outdo the top of Ellenbogen's deck.
Here's the Branch Walker swinging in for Petter Sochurik. Not lethal, but just about. Big match for both of these players. Don't want another loss in the tournament.
So now if Ellenbogen can sniff out Find Finality, what's his play here? Does he want to take the 2 damage and then have the board be wiped, or does he want to trade off and then have Sochurik return 2 creatures? Having the flyer makes me think that maybe you are okay with blocking.
And he does. Bodyguard trades off with the Branch Walker. Follow up here from Sochurik, and sure enough, it's Finality. Clear up the board. And then we get an Explorer creature here, Seeker Squire.
And reveal Midnight Reaper. Now that's a dangerous one.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Probably we're in a position where any non-land is good enough for Sochurik, but Midnight Reaper, not one of the cards that I'd be more excited to see here. Ooh, this is going to be a close game.
Wow. Sky Merger Aspirant, the peel for Ellenbogen there. Seeker Squire gets in. Yeah, I take it down to 1. There's the Midnight Reaper. Passes the turn back. Benalish Marshall? No. History of Benalia.
That's one of the best draws Ellenbogen could have had here, because he can now survive an attack and get a Knight token next turn. So if he has yet another good draw step, he can continue in the game. But Sochurik really only needs 1 card to win here, and he gets multiple draws once the Midnight Reaper inevitably trades off.
All right, so there's the Reaper trading off with the Knight token. Sky Marcher Aspirant on chump duty. Take a hit, draw a card. It's a Wild Growth Walker.
Ooh, and there you see Memorial to Folly, a huge game changer here. Had that been just another Forest or Swamp, the game remains even, but Memorial to Folly threatening to get back an Explorer creature to pair with Wild Growth Walker next turn. I think we're just a turn or 2 away from Sochurik taking this one down.
Legion's Landing finds a 1/1 lifelinking vampire for Andrew, but yeah, just a lot of good options here for Petter. Another Wild Growth Walker, Memorial to Folly. Let's get back a Branch Walker. Go exploring, gain a billion life.
Yep, and he's producing 2 2-power attackers, which means he'll force Ellenbogen to double chump here. And I don't think there's any way the White Weenie player gets back into this one.
Chump, chump. 1 draw left here for Andrew. Turns out it's a land and not a sweeper. Petter Sochurik takes down game number 1 here in round 12, Golgari midrange over mono white aggro. That was a close one though, Reed.
Yeah, that was close. I think both players with sort of below average draws there. Ellenbogen with too many lands, too many Conclave Tribunals, not enough creatures to really achieve that critical mass that the White Weenie deck really wants. And then Sochurik, on the other hand, developing his mana really nicely, controlling the board, but not really having that haymaker knockout punch card like a Carnage Tyrant or a Planeswalker.
Okay, so how is Andrew tuning his sideboard now to deal with Golgari going in to game number 2?
Well, the really key card is Tecatli Honor Guard. That's going to stop the Wild Growth Walker package. It's going to stop Explore. It's going to stop Ravenous Chupacabra. That's the best card that the White Weenie decks can bring in for the matchup. But additionally, Ellenbogen has access to Baffling End, which is 1 more insurance policy against Wild Growth Walker getting out of control. He has access to a Johnny, Adversary of Tyrants, which I've found to be quite good against a Golgari deck, particularly if they sideboard in a way that's too reactive, too many cast downs, too many Ritual of Soots. A Johnny can really punish that. Then he also has access to Experimental Frenzy and Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice, which are maybes.
And how about Petter?
Petter pretty much is going to bring in every card that kills a creature, cast down an Assassin's Trophy, being particularly important against that Tecatli Honor Guard. He really needs to get that one off the board, or else it reduces his deck's ability to function. He might not hit his land drops if he can't explore. He might not be able to kill creatures if he can't use Ravenous Chupacabra. So any spot removal spell that can kill Tecatli Honor Guard is coming right in. Then additionally, he has access to 1 Golden Demise and 1 Ritual of Soot, which can be really, really powerful against certain draws of Andrew Ellenbogen.
Oh yeah, Golden Demise. Just backbreaking for the mono-white player in a lot of spots.
I like his split of 1 Demise, 1 Ritual of Soot, because something that's a little bit inconvenient about the Black Sweepers is Ritual of Soot misses Adopto Vanguard due to the Indestructible Clause, and Golden Demise misses Tecatli Honor Guard due to the 3 toughness. So neither one being perfect, but you know, if you have one of each, it makes it as hard as possible for the white weenie player to navigate around them.
I like it. Best of both worlds. Why choose?
Yeah, you can always just get lucky and have the right one for the right situation.
Getting lucky is a tactic that I often use in games of Magic Arena.
Hey, I think anybody who's made it this deep into a 1,400 player tournament has employed that tactic once or twice.
Oh yeah. And you know, you hear the players talk about it. They're like, you know, in order to make top 8, you got to be good. You got to have a good deck for the weekend, but you also got to have a little bit of luck too. Yeah,
well said. I mean, a lot of being a good tournament Magic player is just putting yourself in a position where if you get lucky at the right times, you'll have a good finish. You know, you play well, you choose the right deck, you sideboard, you make good mulligan decisions, and then from that point, you're just saying, now if things go my way, I'll be the way, you know.
Right. Putting yourself in the best spot.
Exactly.
Players getting ready for game number 2 here. Petr Sochurik currently leading Andrew Ellenbogen, our last Pro Tour champion, fresh off of his win in Atlanta, Georgia. Andrew's running back the same deck that he played last weekend. Oh my gosh. That's really weird to say. Feels like ages ago already. Mono white aggro. And Petr running Golgari mid-range. Now, there is red available in Andrew's deck for sideboard cards like Aurelia, sideboard cards like Experimental Frenzy. Are those the kind of things that he wants to bring into this match?
I would say maybe.
Okay.
Those are considerations, but it's not trivial that they're difficult to cast for Ellenbogen. He has 8 sources of red mana, which means some amount of the time he's going to be holding that really powerful, you know, late game haymaker card, and he's not going to be able to cast it. And that's a bad feeling. You know, a card that's very powerful, but you can only cast it 75 or 80% of the time. That's a lot different than a card that you can cast 100% of the time when you make your 4th land drop. So I would be careful with the red sideboard cards. Experimental Frenzy is very strong, but it is vulnerable to Vivian Reed.
Yep.
Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice, is very strong, but it is vulnerable to Vivian Reed. So if I'm Andrew, all signs point to a Johnny, Adversary of Tyrants, being the best of those 4 mana cards, between being more castable and being a bit more resilient to the particular answers of the Golgari deck.
Just because it's great at getting stuff back that Golgari's killed?
Yeah, that and having a Planeswalker on the battlefield puts a lot of pressure on the Golgari player to have a board presence and send attackers at the Planeswalker, which can be difficult when you're on the back foot and focusing so much on having to defend yourself. Especially if Petr over sideboards too many removal spells, too many board sweepers, and not enough board presence, then a Planeswalker can really punish him.
Big match for both of these players here, sitting at 2 losses in this Grand Prix here in round number 12 of the day.
That's right. This is an elimination match. We don't expect any players with 3 losses to be in our top 8. So, I'm sorry, elimination in the sense of the loser of this match will not be our Grand Prix champion.
Yeah.
However, you know, all players that make it to day 2 can play out the 15 rounds and have a great chance of a good finish to earn some pro points and US dollars.
All right, let's take a look at our opening hands here for game 2. Both players like them, and we are off to the races here. Legion's Landing for Andrew Ellenbogen, turn 1, lifelinking Vampire in play. So Churik's going to take 2 here to get that Elves out on the battlefield.
So last game we saw the one-drop creature attack into the elves and Sochurek take the damage. Again, that's going to be something that's based on the context of his hand. I could see, particularly in the face of Legion's Landing, being interested in trading off creatures, but if his hand is mana hungry or land light, then he definitely wants to keep the Llanowar Elves around.
Vampire gets in for a single point of life-linking damage, swinging life total 17 to 21 in favor of Andrew. Dauntless Bodyguard was a follow-up play for Andrew last turn, guarding that Vampire. There's Wildgrowth Walker, one of the keys to this matchup for Petter. I do see a Conclave Tribunal in hand for Andrew, but the question is, does he want to play out more cards, or does he want to get rid of that thing stat? The answer is Venerated Loxodon. The Elephant comes down, passes out a couple of counters to the Bodyguard and the life-linking Vampire.
Both players developing just the way they want to. So Sochurek has his mana, he has Wildgrowth Walker, and importantly, there is no Tocatli Honor Guard for Andrew Ellenbogen. Ellenbogen, on the other hand, just putting power and toughness onto the battlefield. That's what his deck does. If there's no removal spell for Sochurek, he can threaten to transform Legion's Landing. So both players doing a pretty nice job.
There's Ravenous Chupacabra now for Petter, taking down the Venerated Loxodon. Pretty big snack there for the Chup. 4 mana in play for Ellenbogen. No Explore yet to grow that Wildgrowth Walker or gain Petter life. And there's some Venerated Loxodon number 2 for Andrew here. So that life-linking Vampire is getting pretty big. Chaining these Venerated Loxodons together, one way that the white deck can kind of press its advantage a little bit later in the game when normally its creatures are, you know, as the deck name says, weenie.
Yeah, Ellenbogen has had good plays at every step of the way, but I think this type of game is more of what Golgari midrange wants to play.
Exactly.
If the opponent's going to play one threat per turn at sorcery speed, and you can answer it 1 for 1, or in this case 2 for 1 with Ravenous Chupacabra, that's exactly what Golgari wants to do.
And here we go, Ravenous Chupacabra once again taking down the Venerated Loxodon and passing back over to Andrew.
Notably, a missed land drop for Sochurek. And as you mentioned, these creatures are getting to healthy size.
Five mana open here for Andrew. More if you count Convoke. Down to 2 cards in hand. We're going to fire off that Tribunal that he's had in hand for a couple of turns on that Wildgrowth Walker. The question now is there an attack? And the answer is no. Throws it back over to Petter. And did he just not want to trade with those Chupacabras?
I suppose so. I think attacking with the 4/3 Dauntless Bodyguard would have been totally reasonable, but it looks like he is really prioritizing keeping the door open to transform the Legion's Landing. Paring down the board is not what the White Weenie deck wants to do, especially against a Golgari player with plenty of cards in hand. You need to keep the board state complicated so that if you draw something like Banalish Marshal or a Johnny Adversary of Tyrants, you can push your advantage as much as possible.
There's Seeker Squire now from Petter, revealing a Merfolk Branchwalker on top of his library. I don't think Andrew's list is playing anything like Pride of Conquerors, is it?
That's a fine question. It looks to me like he has 2 in the main deck.
Oh, okay.
However, that's a card that I would look to sideboard out if I'm bringing in bigger stuff like a Johnny. I think that's a relatively easy swap. If I'm against a deck with board sweepers and lots of spot removal, I don't want a card that requires a lot of setup like Pride of Conquerors.
Vanguard?
Adanto Vanguard here for Andrew.
I'm quite surprised that Sochurek left Merfolk Branchwalker on top of his library.
Why is that?
Just seems like a pretty weak card. I don't know exactly what's in his hand, but if he could just peel a land, it might unlock powerful things like Doom Whisperer or Vivian Reed. Branch Walker just sort of a slow way to get to your mana sources.
There's one, kinda. Llanowar Elves left on top of, oh, spoke too soon, into the yard here. 4-petter counter on the Branch Walker. Yeah, I do happen to see Golden Demise hanging out in Petter's hand too.
All the more reason to not want a 2-toughness creature. But he's in good position and has plenty of time to develop his board and his mana. Ellenbogen not really putting the pressure on.
Snubhorn Sentry here for Andrew. And that is enough to get the city's blessing. So that is a 3-3. Adanto Vanguard on the attack here. Petter will fall down to 14. Says, yeah, I'll take it.
You're at 14, that's okay. I apologize. Go ahead.
Boy, Golden Demise looking awful on this board, right? Kills
yeah.
more of Sochuric's creatures than Ellenbogen's.
Snubhorn Sentry, one of those funny little cards that had a terrific showing in our top 8 of the Pro Tour. And coverage was doing kind of a little bracket as to what the top cards would be in the top 8. I'll let you know, nobody had that Snubhorn in there.
No, very unassuming card, but it does do a lot of work in this deck.
Assassin's Trophy takes care of the Vampire Creature token. Gonna go find a land.
So maybe going back to when Petter left Merfolk Branch Walker on top of his library, maybe he wanted to keep his options open of maybe freeing the Wild Growth Walker from Conclave Tribunal.
Oh, sure. Yep. Where are the lands? Jade Light Ranger is like, oh, finally, there we go. And now we can send with the team here for Petter.
Okay. Walk 2-3.
Snubhorn Sentry in front of the Seeker Squire.
Yep.
Takes a big hit though. And Petter finally able to get that 4th land drop.
And one of Petter's priorities here is to make Andrew worry a little bit about his life total so that he can't just continue sending the Adanto Vanguard in and either pushing through damage or eating blockers. But now down to 13, we're again in that stage where he can probably use the Vanguard's ability 1, maybe 2 more times, but that's it.
Ooh, and there's a Tocatli Honor Guard, but is it too little too late here for Ellenbogen?
Well, it's definitely too late. We we've had 2 Ravenous Chupacabras and about 4 Explore creatures, so this guy would have done some work had they shown their face on turn 2, but instead Petter has developed pretty nicely, and now it's just a 1-3.
Snubs heading to the yard here after Assassin Trophy number 2 from Petter Sochuric. Another land, which Andrew Ellenbogen needs none of. And enabling another swing in with the team here. Petter took 3 from Adanto Vanguard last turn, so he's at 11. Andrew Ellenbogen on 13 life. You can see our advantage bar up near the top of your screen in Petter's favor. So Honor Guard gets a block here on one of the Chupacabras, but there's the Golden Demise.
And crucially, this has the city's blessing, so it's going to finish off Ellenbogen's creatures while not killing Sochuric's.
All right, so both players are blessed right now, and there is a handshake. Petter Sochuric taking down this match 2-0 over Andrew Ellenbogen. Golgari mid-range over Mono White Aggro. And I got to say, in both those games read, it looked like Mono White Aggro just couldn't get it together.
Yeah, I agree that it wasn't the same types of draws that we saw from Ellenbogen last week on his way to, dominating Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica. Instead, he drew a few too many lands, couldn't really get things going. He was playing 1 spell per turn instead of 2 or 3 that he really needed to get ahead of Golgari. And yeah, just the ravenous chupacabras and value creatures were able to overpower him.
And that's obviously not always the case in this matchup. Oh, look, a giant island has appeared behind us. Sometimes, like you said, those white weenie decks can really have a very, very, very strong draw coming out of the gates. Hey, dude. The prize wall is a great place at Grand Prix, especially here in Milwaukee. All right, we're going to head down to the feature match area for an interview with Petter. So, sure, congratulations on your win there, Petter.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit, how do you feel about the Golgari Mono White Weenie matchup?
I think it's very close. It really depends on your version. You can either play the black-green version with Druid of the Cowl and Karn, which is better in the mirror, or you can play like more Branchwalkers and Seeker Squire, and it's better against Mono White. I think overall it's pretty close.
So can you tell me a little bit about the decision to have one Golden Demise and one Ritual of Soot?
I just didn't know which one was better. So, the Ritual is better against Benelish Marshal, the 1-3, and Pride of the Conquerors, whereas Demise is better against Benalia, Green-White Tokens, and Adanto Vanguard, so it like really depends. And if I was about to draw 2, I would try to draw the mix, so I think it's better to play 1-1, but I'm actually not sure. It might be wrong.
Can you tell me a little bit about your decision to bring this list this weekend?
I played it at the PT last weekend. It's a very similar version. I just messaged Javier Dominguez what to play, and this is what he gave me. So yeah, yeah.
That's pretty clutch. If the world champ says play it, I'd play it too.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I see that you have more Assassin's trophies than many Golgari players here, and they came in big for you in that match. Is that a card that you turn to for a variety of matchups, or mostly for mono white?
There are certain cards that you just need to answer, like Frenzy, or I don't remember the name of the 6-mana card, the Artifact Suns.
The Immortal Sun.
Yeah, and yeah, I just expected a bunch of decks with Frenzy, so I think it's important to have an answer to that. Yeah.
What decks are you hoping to face the rest of your day here? What's your best matchups?
I actually expected a lot of like white decks coming into the tournament, but I didn't see that many of them here, which is kind of unfortunate because I think my matchup is like slightly favored. I think the most played deck, or the deck that I saw the most, is blue-red, and that matchup is very close, but it's very skill intensive from both sides, so I'm not like afraid to play it, but I would rather play something else. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you've done a great job so far today and
Thank
yesterday.
you.
Best of luck to you the rest of the tournament.
Thank you. Bye.
Petter Sochurik there down in our feature match area after his win over Pro Tour champ Andrew Ellenbogen's White Weenie list. Yeah, interesting question there about Assassin's Trophy, Reed. Are those kind of like granular decisions that you're continually making as standard formats evolve?
Yeah, and different Golgari players seem to have different outlooks on the Assassin's Trophy. Some people just say, no, I'm not willing to give my opponent an extra land, especially early in the game. Decks and Standard do too much with it. But then other players, like Petter that we just spoke to, said it's too important. There are enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers, such a wide variety of cards that need to be answered right away. Assassin's Trophy is as good as gold. So, you know, probably somewhere between those two extremes lies the true answer. But, you know, we'll have to keep an eye on it.
All right, more magic coming your way in just a second. Don't go anywhere. Hey everybody, welcome back to the booth. Marie Berthold